Yes, welcome one, welcome all, welcome to the inaugural episode of GG, the General Gaming Show. I'm your host, Bridger, and you may have come to us from our Guild Wars 2 show, Tales of Tyria. You may have been following me back when I did Tales of Heroes, the Company of Heroes 2 show, or maybe you found us just brand new, out of the woods, nowhere, looking for Skyrim mod talk. Whatever way you got here, thanks for being here. Glad you got a hold of the program, however you may have found it. I am just really excited about tonight's show. Let me introduce my co-host here with me. I have Freelancer, also from Team Legacy. Welcome, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. I also have Great here. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Bridger, what's going on?
A lot of you may remember both of these guys were on the Tales of Tyria show for a very long time. And while we are not doing Tales of Tyria anymore, we really still want to talk about games. So that's what we're doing here. We do record live every other Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can find more information on the show at the Sound Strategy Network YouTube channel currently. We're going to have sort of, the show is going to have its own home on the Team Legacy website, teamlegacy.net. It's not there yet. Maybe if you're in the future, it already is. Okay, also, last piece of promotion. Next week, today's the 7th, on the 14th of April 2013, we are going to be, for the first time, doing a brand new sort of show using the Burning Wheel indie tabletop role-playing game where myself and a bunch of other TL guys and some of my real-life friends are all going to come together and play a role-playing game via Skype for your entertainment. The idea here is if we get enough charismatic people together in the same room, it might explode with laughter. So that's the idea. So we'll see how well that works. I highly recommend you guys check it out. I'm very excited about it. In the meantime, let's jump on to what the hell is this show? GG, the General Gaming Show. What is this? So we've got three main segments in the show as of now. The first segment is a what are you playing segment. We're just going to say, hey, what's going on? The second segment is news. We're going to talk about something in the news, a link to an article, maybe a video, and just talk about it for a few minutes. And then we've also got the main feature. Today's main feature, the reason you're all here, probably, Skyrim mods. Skyrim modding. It's got 1,000 million different things that we can say about it, and we probably won't get through 1/10 of the things that we could say about it, but we're certainly going to try. So with that having been said, let's jump into the what are you playing section. Let's start with Great. What are you playing recently, Great? What's good?
I think the question to ask is what am I not playing right now?
There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a point in the year where we're getting some good game releases, and there's enough to keep you busy, especially with, like, I think everyone's been playing this one at least, BioShock Infinite. Mm-hmm. I know I pretty much have been playing through that, beat it, and now I'm playing through it again. That's pretty fantastic, but I know that you want to do more about that later. So what I've
yeah, we are going to be doing a full BioShock review in 2 weeks' time. That's the next show. Yeah. The main topic is. Thanks for
plenty of time to beat it.
Definitely. So what else have you been playing?
I was talking with a friend of mine, and I actually got back into Dishonored recently.
I've heard really good things about that.
Yeah, that game is fantastic. I've been tweaking it now, like playing with the INI settings and like with the NVIDIA Inspector, so I can really see how far I can push that game graphically. But it's just a really fun game to play. It's a stealth action game from Arcane Studios, and it came out sometime last year, and I played it then, and it was great. And even now, I'm playing it. It's fantastic, and it's fun to play through it again. Aside from that, I've been playing a bunch of other stuff on the side. Some indie games like Cart Life, Papers, Please, and I booted up Warcraft 3 again the other day.
Really?
Yeah, on a weird whim. And that's been interesting. It's a really old game. Are you playing
single player, or are you jumping in the Frozen Throne multiplayer arena with the hardened veterans that are still playing it even now to this day?
I was never a big Warcraft 3 multiplayer, like actually playing the regular game multiplayer. What I'm interested in playing is there are a lot of custom campaigns made through the community, and I missed out on all of that stuff back in like 2004, 2005. So I want to kind of go back and play some of the stuff that the community's made over the past, I don't know, like 5 years or so that I missed out on, which has been interesting. I've been playing through some interesting campaigns. Some are just
what's the best one that you've played so far?
I'm making my way through a campaign called The Journey of Rowan, or the Misadventures of Rowan. It's about a paladin during the Scourge invasion of Lordaeron. And it's actually pretty good. Like, the guy has a grasp of how to basically design a level because a lot of people, they make a level very like corridor-ish, and you kind of like go back and forth down the map. Feels like a more natural map. It flows better, and he did a lot of great voice work. Like he did a lot of custom voice work, which is pretty nice.
Where can people find these things? Like where do they find this thing, the Rowan thing?
I believe they can be found at a website called the Hive Workshop. I'd have to double check that, but hiveworkshop.com. That is a Warcraft 3 sort of user map settings website.
Okay.
Where people are always working. They're still working on projects to this day for Warcraft 3, which is fantastic.
Well, it had such a great set of tools that you could use. You felt like you were a game designer, like you had that level of tools.
Well, if you think about it, like 2 whole genres I can think of have come out of that whole like those custom maps. So Dota, for instance, got its popularity in Warcraft 3. And
pop quiz, great. What was the original Dota map in Warcraft 3?
AOS. And
yes, you're awesome, man. You're awesome.
That was in Brood War, though.
Yeah, yeah, but that's what I mean. Like the original series.
Way
now,
back.
Warcraft 3 made it popular, but yeah, Aeon of Strife, man. Like I asked League of Legends players that now, and they still don't know. Like, you know, it's crazy.
I don't remember that one. I do remember there was like 2 versions of Dota. There was one like Dota All Stars, which was like a revamp of it or something.
No, me and Greg way back when they made a custom map in StarCraft, where it was like it would send mobs of waves of enemies at each other, and you controlled one unit like Raynor or Carrots in Brood War, right?
See, I remember watching my roommates in college play the tower defense games of StarCraft. They would play those endlessly, even when they failed miserably over and over again. And I just watched them play, and I would hear they were both in different rooms, so one of them was always yelling at the other one like, "Get your shit together!" Like, they're getting through your side. It was just like, wow, there's a lot of those. Because they played a different one almost every time. It was ridiculous how much they did that.
Well, if you think about it, like StarCraft and Warcraft created sort of the tower defense genre in a lot of ways. It's very popular on like mobile devices right now. And before like Warcraft 3 and StarCraft Brood War, I had never heard of those games that were like they created that genre in a lot of ways, which is crazy if you think like a game's fan community making those things. It's crazy.
So this is what sucks about this. I had this whole plan. Like Freelancer talked to me before when we were starting the show, and he's like, you know what we need to do? We're putting this on YouTube, but we need to be more than just talking heads. We need to put some game footage in there like Total Biscuit. We need to be like Total Biscuit. So I'm like, yes, let's do this. And I spent the last 3 days getting Skyrim B-roll footage, and I've got trailers from SimCity and Battlefield 4 and Diablo 3, all the stuff that we were planning to talk about, and we're on games from 6 years ago. The footage wouldn't even be interesting, and I don't even have time to quickly look it up.
I think we should take this time to warn the audience listening that this podcast will frequently go back to the golden days.
As long as Freelancer is on it.
If you're not akin to Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog, you're going to have issues.
I don't know. If you never played Chuck Yeager's Air Combat, you're not going to get some of the jokes. All right.
That's what this is about, right? Just our love for gaming. So
absolutely.
It all starts with the classics. So
tangents. All right. So what have I been playing? I'm going to show you guys something. And you are going to be, I mean, I think, great. Did you mention are you familiar with Space Cadets?
No, I thought you were talking about like something like FTL.
No, it's a lot like FTL, but it's a board game. I know that there's some people in TL, I'd mentioned Space Cadets, and somebody's like, yes! So let me show you this game. So this is sort of like FTL. It's sort of like Artemis Bridge Simulator. Each person in the game is part of the crew of a ship. So it's a game where you work together, a cooperative game where you work against the game itself, essentially. There aren't any traitors or anything, but there are people that are very bad at their jobs. So let's take a look at this. So here's the game sort of laid out. You've got the main board in the center that's composed of all the squares that you move your piece around. Everybody's got their own station, right? So you've got shields, you've got then the guy at the helm, you've got weapons, and you've got damage control and engineering and all these things. So let's take a look at a couple of these. So here's the captain's station. The captain's job is keeping everybody calm and making sure that everybody's organized, but you also got a lot of time pressure in this game because you've only got 30 seconds to do your set of jobs. essentially. You've got a 3-minute timer at the very beginning of the turn to talk out what you're going to do. Where are we going to distribute this extra energy? Are we going to send it to engineering? Are we going to send it to damage control? Are we expecting to find something on the other side of this wormhole that we're going to need to shoot at? Should we send it to weapons, etc., etc.? And then after that, you move on to the actual time section. So let's take a look what the stations actually do, because it's brilliant. This game is amazing. So here is engineering. What engineering does is it flips over 7 of these tiles, and in the 30 seconds, when everybody else is frantically working on their own stations, you are trying to arrange these tiles in such a way to make as many of these colored shapes here, and let me see, I can't turn that on now, but to make these colored shapes match up. Right? So you automatically get the thing in the middle, but all the different colors represent all the different stations. So you are programming the amount of energy that's going to go to each of the stations on the following turn. Right? So you have to say, we're gonna prioritize weapons or whatever, or we're gonna prioritize this, and then afterwards, and everybody goes and they said, weren't we gonna get a lot of shields next turn? Wasn't that the plan, Mr. Scotty over there? And he goes, I didn't. Anyway, so that's you got engineering.
So this is faster than light board game.
It is.
Right?
So in the 30 seconds, that guy's doing that. Also, the guy at the helm has to draw a bunch of cards, and he has to distribute his energy. Do I want to speed up the ship, slow it down, or do I want to try to use my energy for maneuvers? The more he puts into maneuvers, the more cards and options he gets to draw, but you have to put down a number of cards equal to your speed. So in this case, they had 4 speed, they had to put down 4 cards, and so in that 30 seconds, it sounds easy. All of these, by the way, sound easy, way harder when you actually get there. He has to look at the board and try and figure out, do I want to do like a slow right and then a straight? How do I want to get to where we're going? And then Helm has to talk to Shields while this is happening and say, I know I told you I was going to try to get our aft facing the enemy before because that's where our strongest shields are, but it may be actually the port side. And then Shields guy has to quickly shift his stuff around, and then Weapons guy, like, you're not even going to put me near the enemy, are you? And so it's fantastic. So that's Helm. Sensors is brilliant. Sensors, you've got all these Tetris pieces in a bag, and based on the number of energy you have, you flip over another cards. You can try to get locks on an enemy, which will make both tractor beams possible and make it much easier for your weapons team to do their job. You can cloak your ship, scan the next sector, try to tractor beam in the right thing, but essentially in the 30 seconds, you're feeling around in this bag trying to pull out the proper shape. If you pull out the wrong shape, you have to put it down on one of your cards, and that card is missed. You didn't get that card right. So sometimes you have to get 3 cards done this turn or you will die. Like, you need to kill that guy and you need a super lock in order to do it. It's really cool. So Sensors is great. Then you've got Shields, which is essentially trying to create a Texas Hold'em poker hand. You put 2 in the middle, and then you get to put stuff on the outsides. And based on the quality of a hand you can make, you get more shields on that side. So 4 of a kind is the highest you can get. If you flip over the correct number and you get the right numbers, you can put in 4 of a kind. If you get a straight or a full house, then you can get varying degrees, and if you can get all of the same color on the outside, then you get to double whatever bonus you had. So that's really cool, because Shields has to communicate with everybody else in this 30 seconds. The more energy they get, the more chits they get to flip over, so the more possibility they can get straights and matches and things like that. Then you've got... Okay.
Is this 30 seconds happening for everyone at the same time?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is.
I'm thinking like everyone gets their own 30 seconds, but this is insane. That's what we said right now.
So then we have the next section where this is weapons control, where they get to essentially flip over and load torpedo tubes equal to the energy that is sent to them, but they have to play this sort of Tetris-like game also, where they have to fill in all the blocks exactly correctly. And for each of these cards they can fill in, they've essentially loaded a torpedo tube, and later, during a later phase, they have to flick that disc up this thing like a shuffleboard style. If they fall off the edge, they've missed. The further they go, the more damage they do.
Oh, wow.
And the range marker at the bottom, basically the further away Helm got you from your target, the further back you have to start. So when you miss your shot, you get to go at the Helm guy like, you started me 6 spaces away, Jeffrey. If I was 3, I totally would have got the damage. Look, it was a half a fucking inch away. So that's just awesome. And then you've got the jump drive, which happens later, because at the end of the mission, you still have to jump away. and you're playing Yahtzee at this station. So you're essentially trying to get 5 of a kind, but that's almost impossible to do in one roll. So every time, at the end of every turn, you're rolling the jump drive anyway, trying to save up these cards. These cards then in future jump drives let you modify the die, turn the 2 into a 5 into a 2. So later when you actually need to jump out when you've completed the mission, you can use these cards' powers to simply get your 5 of a kind fairly easily. So all this is happening, and then at the end you've got damage control because, by the way, if all of that wasn't hectic enough, you've got these possible damage states. So if you get hit, if stuff gets through your shields and does damage, you have to flip over a card for that side of the ship. So if you get hit in the port, you flip over a port card, and it'll say like, okay, the shield guy got damaged, he can't put more than one thing in the center to make the poker hand anymore. He only gets one card in the center. Or maybe the torpedo tube guy, he actually has to solve 2 to load 1 tube, or this just absorbs an energy. When you send an energy over to torpedoes, it just gets lost. The damage is causing the things to flicker. So then, the most brilliant mechanic in the entire game, if you lose all the damage cards on one side of your ship, you now have a core breach. And you can see in the center, they've got a little core breach symbol there, and every time you get a core breach, you have to go higher up that list. It gets a higher number. Now, let's say you're at core breach 4. What this means is, on the following turn, you have to pass out 4 of these special cards. You can see them at the top there. They're just random, weird, crazy shapes with this, like, crazy energy thing. Like, one's an X, another one is like a big C kind of shape. And you pass them out face down to everybody up to the number. So if you have 4 cards you have to pass out, you pass it out to 4 people. Then, during the 30 seconds, while everybody's trying to do their own thing, you have to pass around a deck of core repair cards. And when you get handed the deck, you have to immediately stop everything and search through this deck and find the matching card, and then pass it to the next person. And if in the 30 seconds you do not get all of those cards matched with their individual people, the ship blows up. So you have to repair the core while you're setting up the shields or while you're loading the torpedo tubes. And it's insanely fun how ridiculous it is to lose at this game. I love it so much.
So who controls the enemy? Like the
It's a program.
ship?
It's a programmed enemy. So you move on to a new space. Basically, the mission that we had to do was there was sort of 6 of the 4x4 squares laid out just like you see in this thing here, and on 3 of them were these jump crystals that our goal for the mission was to move into range, lock onto them with sensors, track them with tractor beam. Tractor beam is actually playing a game of memory, by the way. You can see that sort of in the middle of the screen there. They flip over 2 things for every 2 energy, and if they flip over matching stuff, then they get to count that as tractor beam points, and they need a certain amount of, depending on how far away you are. Anyway. Enemies will be there. The mission will say spawn a hard enemy and a normal enemy here. Spawn an easy enemy and an easy enemy here. But you don't just have forever to do this either, because every turn that goes by, the Nemesis ship gets closer. And it depends on the mission. Some missions the Nemesis ship starts 5 turns away, sometimes it's 7, etc. But when the Nemesis ship makes it on the map, it always follows you. And it always tries to hunt you down. And you cannot destroy it. Like, you can destroy all the other ships. The Nemesis ship, all you can do is damage it so it's less effective, but every turn it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it will eventually kill you. So it's ridiculous how much awesome fun all this pressure is. Okay. Whew. So all that.
Wow.
It's just the greatest game
What they
ever.
need now, Bridger, is a way to make it where one of your crewmen is actually an alien, and he's there to infiltrate and basically make everybody
Battlestar Galactica style. I know.
Oh no, who's the Cylon?
That's such a great game.
That
though.
would be something like, because we do a lot of board game nights here, that would be something we would throw in the mix. Like, one person would draw like a straw, or, a short end of stick or something, and his job would be to try to screw things up, like in a subliminal way without other people knowing it's him. Like, that would be awesome.
Oh,
but
and
anyway.
did I mention that some of the damage things say shift change, and at that point 2 people have to volunteer to change places? So just when I was getting good at sensors, they put me on the helm, and I flew the ship through like 3 asteroid fields, and they're like, get him off the helm, send him back to sensors. I was like, damn it. Oh, man. It was fantastic.
So the game ends when you complete your mission, right? Not... Or does it just go on indefinitely until somebody implodes?
No. The game ends when you complete the mission, essentially.
Okay,
so that is the deal essentially. So okay, I've got that video. I'm ready to go for that. Okay, so
what would you say the learning curve is for someone who's never played this before?
I never played it before until like what was it, 5-6 days ago, and I had read the rules, but it's actually more difficult than it sounds. I was worried that it was going to be very much like, oh, this is going to be trivial from the rules. It all sounds trivial until you play it and you've got that hectic stuff going on. But it was easy because you only have to know one station, really. As long as somebody else at the table knows what's all going on and you make them captain to start with, then you should just be fine with plenty of new players. They will maybe have to learn a new station fairly soon, but but that's part of the game. It's really cool. All right, so
good stuff.
Let me see here. What's Freelancer been doing these days?
Oh man, who hasn't been playing BioShock? I mean, come on. I mean, we're gonna have a BioShock episode. Obviously, we're gonna give our official review on it. But I mean, if you haven't been playing BioShock, you need to play it before the review comes out because that game was amazing. I know me and Great and stuff, we have disagreements on various things we'll go over in a later episode, but all in all, I mean, would you say, Great, it was a solid game, right?
I would say that it's going to come around at the end of the year, and everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, that was Game of the Year.
Like when Portal and Portal 2 came out, essentially?
Yeah, and we're not going to spoil anything for anybody, but just the game in general, like if you haven't played it yet, I mean, you gotta get out there and play it. It's one of those games, I don't recall many games except maybe the original BioShock, where you after the game you talk more about the game than you played during the game, right?
Yep.
So yeah. Anyways, you got that. Of course, as far as Team Legacy and stuff, our community is getting really excited for like WildStar Online coming out. Of course, down the road, you got other things like Elder Scrolls and stuff. But WildStar, BioShock more recently, and with, I'd say League of Legends, which is kind of always there on the back burner for myself. That's kind of what's been taking up my time. But I haven't really, I mean, Great, you've been playing a little bit of MMOs, old school stuff, right?
Yeah, some older RPGs and whatnot here and there.
Yeah. I mean, besides that, I haven't really had time. But then again, I have a little one, so
yeah.
basically, with the time I have, do what I can. But go ahead.
I think we're in that time of the year where you can like relax. There's not a lot of stuff going on. It's kind of like you can play these games you maybe haven't played in a while and catch up on stuff or take a relax or take a break or whatever.
Right. Now, as far as getting into Skyrim and stuff, what made you? I mean, we're talking about Skyrim mods and stuff. Now, I'm actually playing Skyrim right now. I actively got back into it. But what made you guys really get into Skyrim more recently again?
I saw you playing a tropical mod, and I was like, "Oh man, I got to try it again."
So it had nothing to do with Elder Scrolls Online. It was just, I got to try this out, right?
Pretty much, actually. Although I am wearing the Elder Scrolls Online shirt I got at PAX, so there. I'm a little bit dressed to impress, as it was.
What do they do at PAX as far as Elder Scrolls Online?
They had a big booth where they were letting people play the game, but it's only you're only playable like for 15 minutes and only in a level 6 zone for like a very short period of time with a couple of quests. That was it. Although I have to say I'm very upset with them for making me very sad when I saw this dog like crying over its owner's body. As a quest, like this dog comes up to me and just like she follows. Like, okay, I follow him along, and he just like goes to his owner's body, he's like pawing it. It's like a Simba moment. I'm like, no, don't do this. It's just a dog. Why does it always make me cry? Anyway, all right, so we're already way behind schedule because I wanted to spend most of the show talking about Skyrim and mods, so I'm cutting out some of the news. But we will go to this very brief thing because I guess it's topical. LucasArts is closed.
Yeah, that's
what. And I should say,
so sad.
The development studio is closed. They're keeping the publishing house so that they can use the brand.
Yeah, see, I played pretty much all of those games, all the way back to when they had the old school. I mean, I thought they were all genuinely awesome. I played all the multiplayer versions. Obviously, a lot of people kind of caught on during Outcast, but did you guys play the ones before that?
I very briefly played 2. I think Dark Forces 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Dark Forces. Yep. It was. I don't know. It's just. I guess I grew up with Star Wars. I played pretty much all of them going through, but LucasArts closing. I mean, it's not like they're not going to still make Star Wars games, right? I mean, there's just so much money there. So basically, what they're going to be doing is running it under a bigger publisher and sort of, going from there. So who officially still has the rights for those games? Is
Disney.
it Disney? Disney now?
Disney. They said something like we're gonna send out. We'll like lease out the rights to whoever
lease it to like EA or something,
It sounds like they want to make social games, but I don't know. I have to reread my source on that one.
I don't think I can sigh loud enough to indicate how much that pains me. But you know what? I am flabbergasted when I saw that Raven released the source code for Jedi Knight 2 Outcast and Academy. I was blown away because from everything I know about developer-publisher relationships, the developer never keeps the rights to their own game. That's never happened. Somehow Raven kept the rights to Jedi Knight 2 Outcast and Academy, two of the best games to come out of that entire publishing house. That's amazing to me.
Yep.
Whew. That is interesting. And it sort of like bodes well, especially since there sadly are a lot of studios closing down now in the video game industry, which is terrible.
38 studios.
38, and then we had THQ had to sell everything off just a few months ago. And
just to stay
it's sort of like we're getting to that point where how do we hang on to like all these games that are being made and like how we keep them for the future? And I guess Raven said, oh, we're just going to give them to the community in a lot of ways. Like, here's the code, save it, do whatever you want with it. And then that's interesting.
That was actually, if anybody's really interested, the Extra Credits explored that topic on one of their more recent episodes. And by more recent, I mean probably in the last 4 or 5 months. They basically said, there are already a lot of games that are basically impossible to play now because we don't have the systems that they were on. I mean, can you find a 3DO anywhere? You couldn't find one when it was out. So how would you find one now? There's like all these games that were for specific systems or maybe even just for operating systems. I mean, maybe you can still boot up a Windows 95 machine now, but are you going to be able to in 20 years?
Who knows?
So maybe emulators work. Sometimes there's problems with that in specific games. So, all right. I know that Freelancer was very excited that Battlefield 4 trailer came out.
Why would you say me, Bridger? That everybody is excited, right?
Shoot guys again, number 4.
I don't know. Origin pissed me off so much that it just puts a bad taste in anything that EA does.
Origin had a bad launch, all right? And EA is the devil. But the people that make Battlefield 4, the actual company, DICE, I believe it is, they do an amazing job putting out a game that's unique from, these other cookie-cutter shooters. I mean, first off, they push graphics and environments far beyond what I feel like Modern Warfare ever does. All right, and secondly, the multiplayer aspect in all the Battlefields, as you guys likely know, is very open. You can do what you want, and it really brings in the creativity of the player. Where I don't want to be just running and gunning and choosing the most overpowered rifle in the game. You can. If you want to strap C4 to the front of your Humvee and run into it, in that game, you can do it. I mean, and there is no other shooter allows you that sort of freedom. I mean, you want to be a sniper that snipes from a random tower that you jumped off a helicopter to get to. Okay, you could do that, So
I really want them. I don't care about modern combat. For whatever reason, it just doesn't appeal to me at all. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like when I heard that it was there, I was like, but then when they said that the 5th one was going back to World War II, whatever that one was, I was like the Pacific one, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm interested in that, and I played that a little bit. But I want Battlefield 1944. Like, I want the super souped up graphical successor using like the current engine. I want to go back and play Wake Island again with this kind of ridiculously awesome graphics, because I feel like the technology level in those games is a better way to put together. Like, I mean, helicopters work fine in the Battlefield 3 interface, but jets just are ludicrous in like that. They move too fast. That doesn't make any sense. You fight in jets almost like they're prop planes because there's not enough space in the map to really accommodate them, right? So that's why we need to go back to prop planes. It was so much more fun to dogfight than to just fire a missile at them, you know? And use flak where you had to aim and predict where they were moving than just to fire a tow missile or whatever they use that shoots at air.
I gotta admit, in Battlefield 3, I was a jet pilot. That's the first thing I maxed out, okay? So something always seemed a little weird that I could slow down to almost a running pace as a soldier and turn my plane to launch salvos of rockets at tanks, while the guy underneath me was running ahead of me, like in a jet without like any sort of vertical takeoff abilities. You could
air
do
brakes,
that.
man.
You know,
air brakes.
As long as you held it. I mean, I could go from. I mean, the max speed was 60 miles an hour or something. I could go from 60 to 5 by holding my S key and then just do all sorts of crazy maneuvers. Now, that is sort of unrealistic. I mean, jets sort of messed up the
several
thing.
tons of aluminum, several dozen tons.
But I mean, if you leave jets out of it, I mean, how much Battlefield 3 did you play, Bridger? I mean, did you play a lot of it at all?
I played a pretty decent amount. It was probably on the order of 40 to 50 hours, I would imagine. It's probably not as much as I wanted to because I was only playing when everybody else was. It's one of those games that I don't want to play multiplayer by myself. I'd rather play with like everybody else that was playing. So TL stopped playing Battlefield 3 and started playing League of Legends. And I was like,
and everybody stopped.
Everybody stopped.
Because the big thing was leaving jets and stuff out of it. The squad combat, the idea of laying down squad beacons, much like what PlanetSide 2 does, you know, and they do right. That all came from Battlefield 3. The idea you could form these squads or squad, you know, redeployment beacons, and you can assign commands, and there's a squad leader. I mean, that was intuitive. That there wasn't anything like that in the other shooters. And I think that if we remember Battlefield 3 for anything, that's one thing that it brought. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, Arma brought that first and stuff, and it did, but Battlefield 3 brought it to the masses much quicker. So now I think what we can thank Battlefield 3 and Arma 2 for is, you know, any future shooters are probably going to have that squad mechanic and, you know, that teamwork mechanic. And I think that Battlefield 4 will extend that tenfold. I mean, I hope that they fix the idea of jets and the physics. I mean, but we'll see. We'll see.
So I just got a message from my friend Tibret, which some of you guys might know. We played some League. He said, so I asked this question in all seriousness. Is it racist if I sometimes think that the woman taking my Chinese order will understand me better if I speak in a Chinese accent? I've never done it, but I'm starting to wonder. I think we need to, for science, we need to.
Are we going to have a reality section in our podcast now?
I guess so. I just had to share that. All right, but let's move on.
I'm just confused now. Like,
all right. I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe somebody in the chat has already done the experiment. All right. Now, we're going to take a 2-second break, and then we're going to go straight into the Skyrim stuff while I change the screen here. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after these, I don't know, messages? I mean, that's how you go to break, right? I don't know how else you do it. You just play the music, I guess, and you go over here. And you do it real smoothly so that it goes to the wrong scene when you do that too. That's how you do it. Okay, we're back. Now let's talk Skyrim, because holy crap, there's so much awesome stuff to talk about when it comes to Skyrim and Skyrim modding and all this other stuff. So let's jump right into it. So great. Why did you start modding Skyrim? What was it about the Skyrim that Bethesda made that wasn't good enough for you?
That's a really good question. But I don't think it's that the vanilla Skyrim was so, like, it lacked something. It was a good game, and I put over 150 hours into just plain vanilla Skyrim. I think we're at a point where the modding community has matured in Skyrim, that they have a lot of tools now, they have a lot of great patches and fixes, and there's people have cracked like the creation kit code, and they're digging in there and they're figuring out all the crazy things you can do. And I think we're at a point where the mods that are being released are more than just like, I recolored this red. It's more like, no, I've made like an entire city of things you can do and like added an entire quest line. What is it? Freelancer was just recently playing Tropical Skyrim. Like, they made Skyrim a tropical setting. Like, that's crazy. And that just shows like the maturity of the modding community.
I don't think it's something so much wrong with Skyrim originally. I mean, we all look at the reviews and it did amazing. But like with any game, you know, we talked about the release code of the early, you know, Star Wars games and such, and other similar games, you know, where release code gets launched. It's not because the original game was bad, but because there's always, I mean, somebody always has an idea to improve things. I mean, these companies are working on a budget. They got to get the game out by a certain time, and that doesn't change with Bethesda or whoever it is, even EA. But when they are on these budgets, they cut out a lot of things, or they don't have enough time to put into certain things. So I think we can all agree to say that with Skyrim, the biggest things they didn't have, you know, enough time, we'll say, to put into it is combat, UI, probably that. I mean, obviously Bethesda has the story and the story writers and stuff down pat, but I think we can all agree that some of the biggest problems were probably the UI and combat. And I think that's when you look at the big websites out there that provide mods, the biggest mods, the most popular downloaded mods is, in the case of Skyrim, like Sky UI, you know. And it's not because people don't like Skyrim or such. They just know that being Skyrim, it can be so much better with these mods. So Sky UI and there's a plethora of combat mods out there, and we all use different ones. But it's just the idea that Skyrim did the storyline right, they did the lore right, they did all these things right, but this is how we can improve it, and modders take advantage of it. And on a side note, every time an MMO comes out or an RPG or such, I just think it should be secondhand now that they launch with modding tools. I mean, modding tools expand a game's life exponentially. Like, the more modders you can get for a community, the more you are able to get people to play the game longer. And just to kind of bring up a hush-hush example, but let's take a look at WoW. You know, Curse Network, which really launched, the big time, getting the community at large to help out with the Curse client, the Curse modding client. It brought in hundreds, thousands of modders from all over to basically tweak and expand, World of Warcraft to be what it is now. Now, ask yourself, great, Bridger, tell me what you think here. If WoW was just original WoW and never offered any modding capability and did the opposite, like you see some companies do, and say, no, we're not going to allow anybody to touch our game, what do you think? Do you think it would have done as well?
Yeah.
You do?
Because this is the same thing I was mentioning before, and you even mentioned, is like the vanilla game was still good. Like, it was still solid, and in so many respects the gameplay was where it needed to be. I think that there would have been at a higher level of play, and I think that's where it gets down to with World of Warcraft in particular, is that a higher level of play, there's all sorts of data that they want to like analyze, and that they want to have, when they want to be able to see while they're playing. And I don't think that's necessarily the case with Skyrim, but I do understand your point of like modding does help extend the lifetime, but I don't think that would have worked with World of Warcraft as much. I think that the game was fine, and that...
Yeah, I think the thing that modding does is remember, when you're making a game, a lot of times you have to make a decision that might not be popular with a particular segment of your audience. You have to say, okay, we're going to allow or not allow third-person camera because it does or doesn't break some other aspect of our game. Or we're going to try and make sure that the melee combat is the best thing because we don't have time to fix and make the ranged combat better, or whatever. There's a lot of decisions you can make that even they're just sort of people's preferences, right? I like this style of play, but the designers designed this game as a different style. So what mods allow you to do is reach out to a broader audience, because I can mix and match different mods and say, this is how I want to play the game. I want to play the game super sneaky stealth style. There's a ton of mods that specifically go with that style of play. Then there's another set of mods that really help you with the magic side of things. They make it more balanced, they give you a lot more options to choose from, and they really make it possible to do a spell sword where it's not possible in the base game. So those kinds of things basically increase your audience breadth. But at the same time, I think mods, because they add new things over time and bring people coming back, you keep people talking about the game longer to their friends, which sells more copies in the end. Because if your game, the people play your game for 100 hours, 120 hours, and then stop talking about it after like 6 months, people aren't going to be reminded about it. But if 6 months later, your friend, I just got this tropical mod for Skyrim, you might come to your head, I did mean to try that out at some point. I bet it's on sale. Let me go look. It's gonna keep it in the consciousness of the typical gaming community, and that's gonna sell you more games. So I think mods, like the way that Skyrim, allows you to do all kinds of things, is really something that helps them. So let's talk about some specifics, I guess. First, for those that don't know, what you need to do if you ever want to do any modding is A, get some kind of a mod manager and use the Skyrim Nexus. That's step 1 and step 2, and then you're done for what you need to do for all intents and purposes. So let's take a look here. This is the Skyrim Nexus. It's skyrim.nexusmods.com. It's the easiest thing to find. If you type in Skyrim mods into Google, this site will come up. It's got everything you could possibly think of and more. There's very few mods that are not hosted here, and those are usually Japanese, and they're usually a little strange anyway. So let's just keep it at that. But the next thing you might want to check out here is a mod manager. Now, there's one called the Nexus Mod Manager, there's another one called the Mod Organizer, and there's one called Rye Bash. I use Mod Organizer, I think Freelancer uses Nexus Mod Manager, and I think Great uses Rye Bash. So why don't I give you guys a chance to explain why you use the ones that you use. What do you use Nexus Mod Manager for, Free?
I just found it's more akin to what I like. There's a lot of extra tools where you can add special lines of code in the mods. So it's relatively new, I believe. If it's not an open beta, it's some sort of beta right now. And probably my favorite part of it is it has an auto-organizing feature, so I can actually hook it up with another mod utility I have that automatically lines up all the mods in correct order.
Is that the Boss, B-O-S-S?
Yes, and it automatically syncs with Boss. So, one thing I've noticed is that if you have multiple mods that somehow modify some of the same attributes or textures, that the stronger mod, or the one that has the more coding, usually will say it needs to be loaded first. And it can get tedious when you're running like me and Great and such with 50 plus mods, to
50.
to try to figure out just where every mod's going to need to go. So Boss, which is another great utility, and I recommend everybody get it. You install it, and it automatically organizes the load order. And Nexus Mod Manager works with that, so it's just something I like to use.
I did leave out one option. Whiskey Jack points out correctly that Steamworks is another way that people can download and acquire mods. And I think that is a good way to download and acquire mods if you are going to have no more than 10 or 12 mods.
Right.
If you just say, I want Sky UI, I want this thing that adds some new swords, and I want this thing that makes the armors look better, and I want this, texture pack. Like, if that's all you want to get into as far as modding is concerned, Steamworks is where it's at. 100% guarantee.
Yep.
That works really
Steamworks limits you in a very large aspect. But it is nice, for somebody that has no experience with modding, they just like 1 or 2 mods, and they just want to hook it up and have it work, because Steamworks actually has a testing protocol where they won't put a mod on there that you could possibly install and screw up your game. So that's what it's really great about. So if you just want to get Sky UI, then great. But one thing I noticed, Bridger, because we were talking about this the other day, is they don't have Tropical Skyrim on there. So
it's too big.
It is too big. Yeah. It is. And but yes, Steamworks is great.
The other thing that Steamworks does is it auto updates mods. When the author updates the mod, it'll update on Steamworks, which is kind of nice. So I'll tell you very quickly about Mod Organizer, but I won't spend too much time on it because I did a whole video on it. You can search the Sound Strategy Network. I also have a link in the show notes, which you can find if you're watching this on the video. You can look down there. There should be a link to the show notes in the description. And I have a review/tutorial guide on how to use Mod Organizer. And Mod Organizer, I'll actually pull up my Mod Organizer for you and just very briefly show you what it looks like. And it basically does pretty much the same same stuff that Nexus Mod Manager does. It even will install using the wizards that Nexus Mod Manager can use. So here we go. Now I can pull this up. So this is Mod Organizer. It looks pretty much similar to anything else. It'll also automatically, like Nexus Mod Manager, check the Nexus and say, you know, this one is all these green numbers are saying these mods are up to date. Here's a mod that says this is not up to date. I didn't update my Vibrant Auroras mod. No. Or so there you go. So and then you can also easily drag and drop things to change the order in which they are. You can also download it through this system. It'll automatically capture the download links from the Nexus websites and let you download it here. I can right click on this and open the link directly to the Nexus. So it's got a lot of great features that are very similar to Nexus Mod Manager. I prefer it for the single reason that this program puts nothing in your data folder. For those of you unaware of how Skyrim is modded, essentially, when you put things in the data folder of Skyrim, it overwrites or adds to the files that Skyrim looks at when it boots up. And the problem there is if two mods are both using the same file, the order in which you install them is very important. And you can't undo that. Now, Nexus Mod Manager allows you to do this multiple times and make sure that they're in the right order. And uninstalling with Nexus Mod Manager is very simple. The way that Skyrim Mod Organizer goes about it is it creates a virtual data directory and includes the mods that you choose from this list and includes them overwriting in the order that you have it listed. So the stuff lower here will overwrite the stuff that's higher here. And when you close down Skyrim Mod Organizer, you have a vanilla Skyrim data folder. No more re-downloading the entire game because you got too much stuff in your data folder and you can't figure out what's causing a crash because of some mod that you tried to uninstall but didn't uninstall everything, etc. So even though that never really happened in Nexus Mod Manager, it's still a possibility, and I really like Skyrim Mod Organizer for that reason.
When you install these mods, they don't get installed into your Skyrim directory?
No, I'll show you where they go. They go into a separate directory. I have them in the MO mods folder. You can make it whatever you want. You can just change it here. You know, I want to put the mods in this folder. And then, so here's the MO mods folder. Here's all of the mods in their own folders. But when you start Skyrim, this program puts all of the activated mods into a virtual directory and convinces Skyrim that this is the data folder. And it works brilliantly. It actually creates a virtual data folder and then puts it in the data folder. So if you do have anything in the data folder, it will also use that. It's not separate. It can also launch SKSE, the script extender. It can also run BOSS, etc. So I really like it. It's gotten better and better over time. There are a couple of things that still bug me about it, but overall, also you can have different profiles. So if you want to keep save games separate between sets of mods, this will let you do that. You can have save games that are specific to specific profiles. So if I had a Machinima profile with director's tools and other things, or if I had a screenshots one that had specific ENBs or graphic settings, whatever. Anyway, I got talking too much about this. There's a whole video I did about it. Why do you use Wirebash? Great, because I know that has a lot of appeal with very big modders.
Yeah, the thing about Wirebash is it has a lot of the tools that you and Free just mentioned, minus that virtual drive thing, which I think is pretty cool for what you were talking about, Bridger. But it's more robust in like what it gives you, and it gives you a lot more. I wouldn't say options. It does it has the installers. It has the list where you can look at things and tick on and off whether you want it, and it has BOSS. It has BOSS, compatibility and SKSE in the borderless window. But the biggest thing about Wirebash is that there's something called the bashed patch. And this is what's key. And this is, even if you don't want to use Wirebash, you need to use it for at least this component. And what this does is the bashed patch takes all of the leveled lists. And leveled lists are anything where a spell is added to the game, or a item is added to the game, or a crazy event or something is added to the game. And as you have a lot of mods that are loaded up, they can overwrite each other. So sometimes these level lists won't be fully compatible with one another, even if you do use the sorting software. And what the bash patch does is it takes all these leveled lists and all these different mods and bashes them together into one singular list that combines them all very nicely and
So they're not conflicting or overriding or anything like that, essentially, right?
So that you don't have any weird issues in game, and that all your sort of weapon mods and armor mods and spell mods and book mods and all that stuff, they all work together very nicely and seamlessly.
So for somebody who's adding a lot of new content to Skyrim, Rire Bash would be really good.
I would say anyone who's adding any content to Skyrim, because it also fuses not only the DLC leveled lists, but also the base game vanilla lists as well. So it helps you, even with just the DLCs, bashing all those lists together as well.
Bashing them all together.
Yeah, it sounds funny, but it's true. They just take all the lists and they bash them down into one list so that the game doesn't have compatibility problems and that you can actually see all the items.
So for those of you that don't understand why you need Sky UI, even if you install no other mods, this is what you need. This user interface is way better for a keyboard and mouse. You can also sort by the value of items or by their weight. It's just way easier to use this. It's got all the different categories up top. It'll show you icons to show you when things are stolen or not. It basically lets you look at your inventory all at once. Also, your magic items are sorted and stored, and they have all the nice features. So I can't say enough good things about Sky UI. So if you don't have it, get it. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. The last thing I will point out is something that's a relatively new feature, and it's another reason that if you're going to have more than just a few mods, you want to get Sky UI, because they have this, the MCM, the mod configuration menu, basically allows you to configure your mod instead of using INI tweaks and things like that. Like before you launch the game, you can do it in real time inside the game, and it's even got tooltips for the various mods if the mod puts it in there correctly. And you can see here I'm going through the list of things, and the number of mods that are supporting this in-game configuration interface is growing rapidly since they made it back in January. I think it became official. So it's very cool. Definitely get Sky UI. That's my #1 first recommendation. Now I'll let you guys go ahead and recommend some other of your favorite mods.
I gotta say, I mean, all the combat changes and stuff. There was one mod released recently that brought me back to Skyrim, because I figured, okay, if I'm gonna play Skyrim again, I want it to feel different. All right. So you got combat mods, right? You got, UI mods.
The two big combat mods. You're talking about a combat mod? I'm gonna try and guess.
I'm talking about tropical Skyrim.
Oh, okay.
I mean, what else? What else, right?
Oh, when you say feel different, you mean feel different.
Literally, feel different.
Be a totally different place.
Yeah. So, tropical Skyrim. Man, it's basically I saw it pop up on IGN was where I first saw it, and I watched the reviews for it, and I'm like, okay. But then I started seeing all these modders making additions for it. So aside from tropical Skyrim, see if you can roll some of that footage.
I'm trying now, but it is not.
Okay, well the thing
you gave me dungeon footage. Why is it dungeon footage? Oh, here we go. Now we're outside, so we're gonna see. There we go. I think we see some palm trees and stuff here in Whiterun.
Yeah. So the thing with tropical Skyrim is even though it changes all the textures, which at the base level, this is what it does. It changes all of your trees, changes all of your, your grass textures, your bush textures, all sorts of stuff to kind of tropical things. So if you think Far Cry in Skyrim, that's what you're getting. I mean, literally. Now, that alone wasn't enough to bring me kind of, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And I didn't have Skyrim downloaded, and this was like a couple weeks ago. But then there's all these modders creating like things specific for it to kind of make it feel like a different game. So one of the mods that got added to it and kind of switched into it was a mod that enhances the wildlife. It adds things like prides of lions, and obviously the mod changes your wolves and stuff to raptors. And of course, I added
looking at this, just the amount of vegetation means you can't see nearly as far. Which means you're going to be a lot more surprised by the things when you come across them like 3 feet away from you instead of 20 miles away when you can see a mammoth on the distance.
Well, and another thing is like, while this is happening, I have another mod, and I'll have to grab the name, where like the different creatures can smell you and then stalk you. So you're running through this jungle, right? This really lush jungle. And there's, I have Lion's Pride mod type thing installed. And I've had more than a couple moments, and my streamers can attest, where I'm just kind of chilling out in the wilderness and looking around trying to, find something. And then I hear growling, but I turn around and there's nothing but foliage, right? So you can't see what's going on. And I'm like, this is not good, And,
An apt description.
Did they change the house textures to be like bamboo? Is that what it looks like?
Yeah, bamboo instead of regular wood. All the cities are changed, everything. Anyway, so I'm in the middle of the jungle, and like even some of the really small grass textures in the vanilla Skyrim, they're really small. They're like 3 inches tall. They intentionally made them like 6 feet tall in this mod. Okay? So that's what gives it the illusion that there's a lot more foliage. Like they took tiny textures and made them much bigger. Now, sometimes this causes little clipping issues, with buildings and stuff. But in general, it looks great. But what this also does is something as simple as grass. It hides like that tiger that's growling at you right behind you 6 feet away, And the stalking mod that I have, it makes it where they don't immediately rush you. Like if you're not actively engaged with them, they will try to sneak up on you. So it adds a whole nother layer to it. And while I was streaming more than a couple times, I've been running through the jungle trying to get to my objective, and I would just I'd have that feeling, that feeling you get in a game where you freeze. You're like, this is not good.
Somebody or something is watching me. You have to add that or something.
That I wish that my flames would actually just ignite the whole forest.
Fire propagation, let's go, get it in there.
I want that in there in 3 years, Skyrim modders. It's going to take you that long, I know it, but I want the whole forest to be burnable. Now, the mod you're talking about that does like the predators like stalking you, does that work in regular Skyrim too, or is it only in tropical? Yes. What the hell is that called? Because I need to get me that.
I'll have to pull it up for you. I don't think we can do it right now, but it's just all it does is it adds an AI script where they don't immediately rush you, and it's so simple, but it adds a whole nother layer to it, and it works really well with tropical Skyrim because you can't see very far. So if there is a monster on the other side of that bush, you don't know they're there, and they don't necessarily know you're there, or if they do, they won't immediately rush you. They'll wait until you get closer. So everything from tigers that mauled me in the middle of nowhere, God knows where they came from, to like prides of lions who will sit there and watch you very intently if you come up to them. That's different from the typical, Skyrim where as soon as a mob sees you, they rush you, So
is it Sky Test, Realistic Animals and Predators, or is that something else?
That might be it, but I'm going to grab it and throw it in the show notes for later. But,
all right, excellent.
I think that actually sounds familiar. It's Realistic something, and it adds AI scripts. But, yeah, so tropical UI or tropical Skyrim basically just changes textures at the base level, and then adding those extra mods that you'll find that he recommends, the mod author recommends, really just brings a different feel. And this mod alone, as simple as it is, just changing textures, is what made me re-download Skyrim and spend. We all know the dance, where you spend 20 hours modding Skyrim again.
Oh man!
And so I spent like a whole night, playing League of Legends and alt-tabbing, downloading more mods for Skyrim, and got started. So I'm level 12. I'm excited. Got mauled by like 6 tigers. It's okay, though. Eventually, they're all going to die. And
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's a weird cascading effect where you install like 1 or 2 mods, and then it's like
yes.
6 or 8, and then it's like 16, and then you're on the 32, and it goes all the way up to like 64.
It's definitely exponential.
Yeah, it definitely gets out of control really, really, really fast.
I mean, the one that I'm looking at here, the Sky Test Realistic Animals and Predators, he basically has scripted animals to go out hunting. And if you kill a predator, like a wolf or some kind of a bobcat or whatever in the regular Skyrim, and you find like an animal meat in them, it means that earlier on, if you had been there, you would have witnessed that animal like hunting and killing a deer or an elk or something and eating it.
I think that's the mod there, because another thing about that is there's quests to go hunt out different animals. And I've come across those quests. And also, you'll see naturally, like, the prides of lions and stuff and the tigers, which replace the snowcats in the game, will actually, you'll see them stalking prey and stuff, and intentionally living out their, what you would expect them to be doing. They don't just sit there, which is nice. But I added a whole bunch of other things, too, I guess I should mention with Tropical Skyrim. There's mods that add, like, insects to the game. There's mods that add various like flora and animals to the game. There's mods that add numerous alchemy type stuff and plants. And when you add all that together, it really brings out the life in Skyrim. And since you spend so much time traveling from one point to another, that was my biggest thing. You know, I want to make it feel different, so I'm not just running past the same snow landscape.
Right. All right. Great. What is your favorite out there of all of the various? Let's throw them. Just give me a good one.
I'm gonna have to actually, because I'm kind of a nerd for graphics in a lot of ways, I'm gonna have to recommend the ENBs if your computer can handle them. The ENBs are basically post-processing graphical mods, which it's not a mod per se, but more or less it is a robust tool that injects sort of graphical effects into the game that make it look like some of the best. It makes it look like like one of the best games out there on the market right now when you get this thing tweaked out. And there are a bunch of different configurations people use for it, and there are. When I say they're taxing on your system, they are extremely taxing on your system.
I go from 60 FPS, which is the max you can have with VSync enabled, constant 60 FPS with vanilla Skyrim. When I throw an ENB on there, it drops it down to 35, 40 instantly. It's just that big of a difference, even on my beefy system. So depending on the ENB and the quality level you use, because some of these, you can crank it up so that the lighting on the ENB uses like indirect lighting. Like you can turn off ambient lighting, because in the game everything has just ambient light. Reflective, basically everything is glowing just a tiny bit, even at night, even during the day. So you can change it so that the direct lighting of the sun reflects off of things onto shadows where the sun isn't actually falling in a realistic way. It's going to destroy your machine and get you down to really low FPS, but if you want to take an amazing looking screenshot, these ENBs can do some of the best work. And what you're seeing in the footage that I'm doing here, I do have an ENB on there called Superb ENB, and they also can sort of change the tone of the game. So the one that I have is a very sort of fantasy, it's like a fuzzy, colorful ENB, but you can have other ones that sort of desaturate the colors and give it sort of a realistic sort of brown shooter look, I guess, if you want to I want to play more Battlefield in my game.
I mean, yeah, Freelancer was just like saying how good Battlefield 4 looks. I mean, Skyrim can look pretty good when you get all the texture mods in there, all the better meshes and stuff, and an ENB tacked on top too. It's insane, like the stuff you can get. You can get it to look like, and you can get it to do. Though, like someone in the chat just mentioned, it's not very user-friendly. You don't just go to the Nexus and download the ENB and just like, yeah, it's installed. It requires a lot of sort of tweaking on your end, to get it to work well enough. And I wouldn't recommend it to someone like who's like, I'm going to start out modding Skyrim right now, today, first time ever. But I would recommend it that like if you do a lot of reading into it and you can figure out like what works well on your machine, because there's a ton of different configurations.
I would say if you're not installing any other lighting mods, like there's realistic lighting overhaul, there's climates of Tamriel, all these other ones that you can install that are not ENBs. If the only lighting or sort of visual upgrade outside of textures that you're putting on your machine is ENB, you can get away with downloading ENBs and just trying them out and using the presets that come with them. But if you're trying to combine the ENB with anything else that affects lighting, you're going to need to do some tweaking. I found that out the hard way. But it does. Ooh, there was a good trap. I actually used the trap that time and then failed to block. Awesome. Good job.
Do you use, sorry to get sidetracked, are you using ASUS or whatever it is, or ISIS?
What is that? The one?
I use that one.
What does that do that changes something? I don't remember what it does.
It does a bunch of different things. It adds like perks and stuff to enemies so that they can get the same perks and stuff.
That's a sort of difficulty changer, right? It can change.
Right.
So I use Skyrim Redone, and I'll talk about that when we get to that. But that is my sort of difficulty mod. I use Skyrim Redone to make the enemy and also the Deadly Combat mod, which adds better AI for the enemies and new sort of combat actions and gets them to know how the combat works. Anyway. Briefly back to ENBs, there are a ton of them to choose from. I mean, just look at this list. This is a list of ENBs on the Nexus in order of most popular as determined by their endorsement. So Suburb's at the top, but this Enhanced Shaders one I think is pretty old, but I don't know. You have to look at sort of the updated time. Actually, this is updated in March 2013, so that might not be bad.
33 pages.
Sharpshooters is one. Yeah, there's 33 pages because anybody can just take what somebody else has done and tweak it and re-upload it. But some of the ones the big ones on here, Superb, Sharpshooters, The Wilds, Project ENB, Sky Realism, those ones are, and Bleak ENB, Confidence Man, these are ones where a single person, with the help of the other people around them, have spent countless thousands of hours tweaking things to be just right. I mean, look at this Sharpshooters one is one of the ones that is a really, really big performance hog, but god damn does it provide you with some amazing looking screenshots. I don't even know what that is, actually. That's somebody falling in a blurry way. There we go. So, I mean, just look at this. That looks like a photograph. It's amazing. But this one might not be playable at that specific quality level. And I'm sure the person also had some other high-quality textures and things in order to make that look right. But the game can look so much better with ENBs. Again, don't try it if you don't have, you know, a decent graphics card from like the last 2 or 3 years. And even then, if you don't have one from the last 1 or 2 years, you might not be able to crank it up as much as you want. So I guess that's probably it. The ENBs we could probably talk another 1,000 years about, but it's probably best to move on. So I think
I'm just gonna shoot this out there. I'm using a 560 Ti right now.
Yep, that's
I probably
mine.
have the weakest graphics card here. Well, you have the 448 one.
Well, yeah, I'm slightly better than yours, I guess.
Yeah, so I've like probably the weakest graphics card here, and it hammers me pretty hard. And I have like a mid-high card. So keep that in mind for those out there.
Yeah. So the next one I want to talk about is one that I use all the time, specifically when I'm testing out mods. Because a lot of times when you're trying to figure out why something isn't working right, for example, you know, okay, mod X, you installed it and you want to try it out, like Convenient Horses or something else where you like, I just installed this new mod, and a lot of them maybe you need to start with a clean save, or you need to start with, you know, a mod where you're inside or something like that, or maybe just restart a whole game, but you don't want to go through that stupid intro again where you're a prisoner and you're waiting and Ulfric's there gagged and you're just listening to the backstory, and then you finally get to create your character. There's a ton of mods that change the way you create your character. Well, the good news is alternate start solves a lot of problems. It actually lets you create your character right away, the instant you hit new game. And the other thing I'm showing on here is a mod called Race Menu, which allows you to do all these different sliders and change things much more easily than the base game manager. It's kind of like a Sky UI version of the character creator. But it also gives you very, very detailed control over the color of your character's hair and lips, but not eyes because those are textures. But take a look at this. You can make green hair, you can make orange hair, you can make purple hair, you can make whatever you want. So that's really, but here's the meat of alternate start. You go over to this statue after I change my phobe, and you get to start in a number of different ways. You can choose to start as a member of owning property. You can have a house when you start the game in a particular city, or you can get caught crossing the border, which is the default start. You'll start just like you normally start Skyrim. Or you can be camping in the woods, which will put you north of north of Helgen. And you're right here, and right when you come in, the dragon's flying overhead, and the mod hooks into the main story and basically makes it so that what you have to do is simply go up to the cave where the main intro ends and talk to one of the guys, and that will allow you to get in. So you start with sort of a basic set of equipment for whatever you pick. So you can start here in the woods, and you'll start with the stuff that somebody camping in the woods would have, like a ranger, for example. And you can see here that what you do is the game will guide you. If you want to start the main story, you go here to the cave and you talk to either Ralph or the other guy, the Imperial guy, and choose which one you want to have gone with at the beginning. And so you give him a thing, it'll crush the other guy with a rock, and boom, you can move on and move on to the next part of your quest, whether you want to follow the main story or not. So there's a ton of different ones. So the starting in the wild is the one most similar to the basic opening because you start right in the same area. But you can also start in a city as an owner of a house. You can start on the very first quest of a particular guild. If you want, you can say, I'm a new member of the Mages Guild. And bam, you start in the Mages Guild as a new member. Or with this one, I think, yes, you're on a ship that is shipwrecked just off of the coast of Solitude. And you have to find your way out and collect supplies on your way out. So it's pretty cool.
The shipwrecked one with a hypothermia mod or some sort of is a tough start. I will say that much. It's a very
tough start.
Because you have to like go swim through the cold water, and you have to get out of that ship before you freeze to death. It's pretty interesting start if you're using those kinds of mods.
Yes. So you get that, and then you go up on top of the ship, and there's like another dead survivor there, and you get to loot his body and take all his stuff. I think I showed off one other one here. No, I think that was it. So that's a couple of examples of the things that alternate start can do. I really like it, and if you're just testing mods and you want to start, with a fresh start in a city, because I want to okay, I just need to go to Whiterun, and I don't have any saves with these mods. So I will just say I own property in Whiterun, and boom, I'm there. And now I can test the graphics in Whiterun, because the center of Whiterun can be pretty hard on the graphics, and that's the way it works. I just got some new upgrades for the town visuals or whatever. So it lets you go places very easily without using the console or anything else. Anyway, that's my next suggestion. Free, give me another one. What's another good one?
I'd say for the most part we went over a lot of the good ones. Now let's say you already have your mods, right, and you're going through the game, and the world leaving out Tropical Skyrim, you're playing whichever mod. I've noticed that you also like Warzones, Bridger, right?
Yes, Warzones is really cool.
Yeah, so what Warzones does is not only does it add like another side, sort of quest system to the game, but at the very base level, it brings out the life of the story within Skyrim. So as we know in Skyrim, we won't go into spoilers, but you have basically the Stormcloaks, you have the Imperials, you got bandits, etc. So the Stormcloaks are sort of the natural inhabitants of Skyrim. Okay, the Imperials, they come from a variety of different lands. They've sort of moved their way down into Skyrim and are there to sort of claim and maintain control of it. And the idea, the story in Skyrim is that the Stormcloaks are essentially vying for power of their homeland. So what Warzones does is it adds these what you would assume would be a Stormcloak city, what you would assume to be an Imperial city. It adds armies to those cities, and it adds like offensive camps for the opposing side to attack those armies. So when you leave like Whiterun, for example, there are now, at least at the start of the game, there are Stormcloaks there, because Whiterun is considered to be run by Stormcloaks until you choose a side. Now, when you walk outside of Whiterun, the first time you install the mod, you're going to see, depending on how you have your settings set, I don't know what you have it set, I have it maxed out, Bridger, you will see like 30 soldiers instantly come from this camp and rush the opposing camp where the Imperials are found at. And they will just slaughter each other nonstop. They'll spawn more people, and it's just a massacre. And this is all over Skyrim. There's various camps and stuff. Now, if you don't want to take sides, let's say you don't want to be the guy that starts killing a bunch of Stormcloaks, along the borderlands, along the outsides of the maps and sometimes in between, there's also areas where like Stormcloaks and Imperials will be attacking bandit camps and various things. Now, there's other factions, I'm not going to spoil them as well, where they'll spawn different types of creatures. But the idea of the mod that is, and I almost feel like you can't go without it now, is that it just brings a lot of life to the game.
Yeah, because in the lore, you're reading through this whole thing, and it's like, yes, there's a giant civil war happening all around you as you're walking through the entirety of Skyrim going, really? Really?
Exactly.
Because I don't see anybody. I saw a traveling guy and his wife the other day, but they didn't seem like Stormcloaks to me. But I have to agree with you. You're just randomly walking along, and you'll see just a battlefield, and sometimes the battle will have happened before you got there, and you get to loot all the dead bodies, which is even better. It's like it makes you rich.
Well, they don't. I've noticed though. I've tried to go down that route, Bridger, and they don't typically carry a lot on them. Usually, they just have their armor and their weapon.
Yeah,
but
it's not like you get a ridiculous amount of awesome magic weapons.
But when I started with the alternate start mod, I think I chose camper because I wanted to be an archer, and I actually came across one of those war zones and actually got my upgraded set of armor and Imperial bow from them. So, it was like it seemed like natural. It seemed part of it because I basically was a camper. I decided to venture out from my camp. I come across this battle, and if you didn't know the story, you're like, why is there a bunch of Stormcloaks dead all over the place? And then you see an Imperial camp that's sitting there watching over the land, right? And I'm just looting all these, and and I felt like starting the game, I was just a mere, you just, there's a name for the people that loot after dead bodies in a war zone, but I felt like one of those guys. Like I hadn't earned my place in the world. And then as you go through the game, those war zones, depending on which side you take, because in the game you do have to eventually choose sides. Eventually you're going to be on the side of one of those. When you see a ton of Stormcloaks, you're going to be like, oh crap. But in the War Zones mod, you can always be sure, and there is map markers, that there's a, in this example, an Imperial camp not too far away. So you can join them, and there's quests at each camp where you can send war parties to annihilate the other camp. So
I mean, if nothing else, just take this marketing material. War Zones Silver Unrest adds thousands of really pissed NPCs. Like that right there, I'm in. And this has been, by the way, getting a lot of work done over the years. Like this started, they're on version 5 right now of War Zones. So they've done 5 major revisions of the game, and it's up to date with the current patch. Now, I believe Great was going to mention that in addition to War Zones, you can get another thing called, what is it, Immersive Patrols?
Yeah,
I have that one too. Yep.
Immersive Patrols, like where War Zones creates these like giant battlefields, Immersive Patrols more looks to add a lot more encounters while you're walking around on the roads. So you can come across like Imperial patrols, like it would make sense, like, oh, they're supposed to be here, they kind of patrol the roads to make sure they're safe. But then you can also run around, like the Dawn Guard can be roaming around looking for vampires. Or you can actually run into vampires just on the road, like, hey, what's up? We're here to kill you. And it solves that problem, like you guys mentioned, that where Skyrim felt kind of empty. And it helps add some like liveliness to the roads. Especially, I do a lot of traveling by the roads. I just kind of walk through the world, so it's great to just run into random characters on the road.
I travel by the roads because I can't trust what's on the other side of the bush.
Well, yeah, you're in a jungle, so like that's a whole different scenario.
Now, the other thing that's really nice about if you use War Zones and Immersive Patrols together, they work together so that Immersive Patrols, you'll like see patrols of Imperials walking near and then seeing a camp of Stormcloaks and charging after them, and starts a whole fight. And often I like jump in and then realize I'm on the side that's blatantly outnumbered and go, oh crap, and I start kiting like a bitch, running up terrain trying to hide behind things so they can't get me. I was like, no, I will kill every last Stormcloak bastard here.
Bridger, I gotta tell you one thing. Wait until you find a Giants patrol.
All right.
Do you think you need to abuse the AI? Wait until you see 3 of them stomping about, and they spot you. There is one place in the map, not to spoil, you probably know where I'm talking about, where there are giants. They live there, and they have patrols that actually patrol outside of that city. And I ran across one of them.
Don't touch their mammoths.
It was not pretty. No, they don't even have mammoths traveling with them. It's just a patrol giant.
It's just a destruction patrol. They're just ready to destroy everything they see on the road.
Yes.
All right. So the other thing that I highly recommend, and it's very modular, so you don't have to install a lot of stuff if you don't want to, is, did you guys ever play the OOO mod in Oblivion?
Yes.
That was like the major overhaul mod. If anybody played anything in Oblivion, they almost, if they got into modding at all, they almost certainly used Oscuro's Oblivion Overhaul, I think it was called. This is what I think is becoming known as the equivalent. This is the overhaul mod that everybody sort of turns to. It's got 3 million downloads, or views, over 300,000 downloads, over 12,000 endorsements. Skyrim Redone is what it's called. And it does a lot of things. It's actually got a lot of different modules. The main module essentially redoes all the perk systems, because anybody who's a power gamer, freelancer, you must have realized that there's a lot of perks in there that are just useless. There's no reason you should take them if you want to play to win.
Well, it's like, I'll give you an example. I'm a mage, but I don't have any points in the mage tree. Like, screw that. I mean, like, they're all worthless. You can put a point into the fire, like 25% more fire damage, but who knows around the corner with all these mods, if you're not going to get a really awesome ice spell. So, yeah, I definitely agree with the perks being redone there.
So this one does a lot of cool stuff with the perks. I'll see if I can find, he had some cool pictures before. Maybe they're not there anymore. But he has actually, this mod has gotten so big, he created a new entry on the Nexus specifically for the guide to this mod, which is a PDF. The guide made it into the hot files, the ones they feature on the main page because of how many hits it was getting. But let me give you a quick sort of example here for people who are unsure or like, well, I really like the perk system. I thought it was pretty cool. Well, one of the things that I think is the coolest thing is, if I can find it, here we go, light weaponry. So here's the light weaponry perks, just some quick examples. One of the things that is that one-handed was pretty boring. And you only had the 3 choices for one-handed. You had maces, axes, and swords. This mod, the main mod, packages 2 other mods, heavy weaponry and weapons of the Third Era, and basically creates a new set, new types of weapons. So you have standard short swords. They fight and do different things and gain different advantages in this tree than long swords. Long swords get different stuff from katanas, and pole arms, short spears and long spears have different fighting capabilities. And then you've got 2 different types of hammers and things like that, and axes, and so you're going down this tree, and it's basically, okay, you've got all, and then you've got a special tree with all kinds of things specifically for dual wielding here. So this gives, like the original light weapons had 1 perk for dual wielding, and it was relatively useless. Dual wielders did not make any use in the original vanilla game, but here you've got an entire set of perks. You've got dual flurry, which can go to elemental flurry, and which makes your elemental procs better on your dual weapons. Dual savagery, power attacks, dual wielding is stronger. Florentine combat lets you deflect an enemy, essentially parry them whenever you attack, and it's just really cool. And then you've got a set of lines for maces and things like that, and then you've got ones for other things. It does the same thing for the heavy weapons. It adds long pole arms, and it adds other types of long swords that and other types of big axes and things like that. It also splits up bows into long bows and short bows, and long bows get better damage but have a longer pullback, and short bows get faster and faster sort of shots between things. So that's the main thing here. It also differentiates light and heavy armor so that they have different actual rolls. It balances smithing, so it's not ridiculous. It adds a timed block mechanic to combat. It adds Wayfarer, which is a tree that is dedicated specifically to learning things about Skyrim and the environment. And so if you take a set of perks, you'll know more about a particular type of enemy. You can tracking ability, you can detect things within a certain radius once you learn the lore of lesser creatures. When you learn the lore of predators, you'll have combat bonuses against wolves and things like that. And cave dwellers will give you knowledge about spiders and other things, and you'll actually have combat bonuses against them. So there's a whole other tree for that. It's just really, it redid all of the trees, and if you read through his explanations for what he did and why he did, he has some really good stuff going on in there. The other thing he does is races. He rebalances all the races to make them more interesting than the base set. The standing stones, he rebalances all of those to make them more interesting and actually have a decision where you'd really want to. He has his own combat module, which I choose not to use because I like the deadly combat better, but we can talk about that later. The combat module adds some more changes, and it basically makes combat harsher. Instead of whacking 20 times on an enemy to kill them, if you get like 3 good hits in without them blocking it, you're probably going to kill them, and they're going to kill you in the same amount of time. It also scales enemies better and faster so that you actually have areas that you might not be able to go to until you get stronger. And it also changes the AI to be smarter about it, so when you're fighting them, it adds encounter zones, similar to what War Zones does. So it does all of these things, and this is all module. So you can put in just the main module, just the races module, just the combat module. Definitely check it out. Skyrim redone, the abbreviation is
It looks
Skyrim.
like something I would restart my whole game to play.
Exactly.
I don't have that one installed.
Very cool. It's getting more and more popular, and like I said, the PDF for it got into the hot files. So if you just read through, you know, he describes, okay, marksmanship, all perks were either boring, kill more perks, or useless. So he split them up and did other cool stuff. Anyway, I don't want to go on about it. You definitely got to check it out. It's a lot of reading to do, or you can just jump in and just play around with the new perks as they stand, because it's a lot of cool choices in there where I went, I really want to play and choose between these 2 things. So anyway, that's any more from you guys? Any ones you want to jump on the bandwagon here?
No. That's I mean, we can go on forever and ever about it, but
Definitely.
I think we went over the main ones. So
Deadly Combat. I recommend Deadly Combat. Looking through my list here of any others that are really worth pointing
I would
out.
recommend Duel. I mean, it's just like a preference at that point.
True. They're both
the two
good.
the two big combat module overhauls are Deadly Combat, like you were saying, and Duel. And Duel focuses more on stamina management and using your stamina to like block attacks and attack and stuff like that.
Yep, they both do that kind of thing. They just both do it in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There's a dodge mod. That's not bad. What else did I have here? Sky UA, alternate start. There was one other that was sticking in my mind, and now I can't remember. Oh, categorized favorites. To the favorites menu what Sky UI is to the main UI. And categorized favorites, and then the categorized favorites menu Oni edition will basically allow categorized favorites to work with every major mod out there. And I don't know if I pull up the favorites anytime in this video, but it is basically changing the favorites menu to sort things in a way that makes sense, and it has compatibility with tons of different mods out there, so they're not just all stuck under the other category, which is kind of nice. So yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of other ones on this list that are really okay. Well, the ones that everybody probably should have, the unofficial patches.
Yeah.
Skyrim unofficial patch, Dawnguard unofficial patch, and Dragonborn unofficial patch.
Plus Hearthfire.
Hearthfire unofficial patch, yep. Water is a really nice mod that visually makes the water look better. Static Mesh Improvement mod. If you get no other visual upgrades, the Static Mesh Improvement mod is one you definitely want to check out. Bethesda High-Res DLC Optimized. That's not bad either. It basically makes the high-res DLC that Bethesda released more optimized and less taxing on your VRAM.
And that's really important, especially when you start getting a lot of different texture mods, and if you have an EMB running, like that little bit of VRAM you can save from getting optimized sort of textures and mods is huge.
Definitely.
Huge. Yeah.
Definitely. So at the end, the last piece of information that I would say is the method of how you go about modding. The best thing to do is remember that mods that you install and then play with, and then if you want to get rid of them, are sometimes problematic. Anything that puts scripts in there, if you just delete it and get rid of it, can cause a problem. So probably play from a save game and decide if you want to play with that mod before saving again. You know, just play around with it a little bit, spend some time. You know, if it's a big mod, I should say. If it's a graphics mod, if it's a texture don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. But if it's anything that's big that uses scripts, you should worry a little bit about that. The other thing is, like what Great said here, you got to start small. You got to start small, or you're just going to run into... I have not just sat down and played Skyrim with all my mods and ready to go until this weekend, and I have been doing this since October. I am not joking. Off and on since October.
It's really exhausting. We made a joke before where you exponentially increase the amount of mods you get, and it's true because you'll be like, oh, there's a mod that does that, and I kind of want to fix this, and I want to change these textures.
Do them one at a time. If they're big, for the love of God, don't try to check out more than one new mod at a time. You will pull your hair out trying to figure out which one of these 6 things that you just enabled is causing the crash that just happened.
I'll make a recommendation for a rookie. If you want to start modding Skyrim today, if you already have it, and you got the DLC and stuff like that or whatever, get the unofficial patches, look for fixes that fix sort of broken things in the game, and then make sure all those are working correctly, and then go from there and follow whatever guides. There's billions of guides out there on
just
how to
make a
mod.
Note of every mod, or even download them in the manager, but don't enable more than one at a time. Just like, okay, for this session, I'm going to turn on convenient horses and play around with that mod, and then the next day when you boot up Skyrim, turn on the next mod, and then the next day turn on the next mod. That's the best way to do it, and I never follow that advice.
Yeah, it's easy to give advice, hard to follow it. Always.
The last 2 pieces I will say is there are 2 links besides the Skyrim Nexus, which is a great site. You can even order by top files and sort of look at the ones that are most endorsed. Another thing, make sure that the mods you're downloading have been updated recently and are therefore, available for the current patch for the game. So when Dragonboard came out, a lot of mods got broken, and the people who are actually keeping their mods up were able to put out fixes for that. So the last thing, though, is the STEP project. STEP. It stands for Skyrim Total Enhancement Project. I have 2 links in the show notes here right now, which you might want to check out, that link to the STEP project. It is essentially a step-by-step guide that will walk you through improving the visuals of Skyrim. It has a huge list of recommended mods. It's been updated constantly over the years, so definitely recommend that for visual upgrades. However, the website SkyrimGems.com is a great place to go if you're looking for gameplay upgrades. You're like, I need something new, like the Tropical one or Skyrim Redone. And it's got them all sort of put into different categories here. So time savers for the UI. This one will auto unequip your ammo, so it looks better when you're in 3D, or when you're in third person rather, if you're holding a sword and shield, but you have a quiver on your back. That looks weird. But if you're using your bow instead and it's stored, then, so it's got little things like that in there. Then you've got character creation mods. Then you've got carry weight mods that make the game very arduous and so hard because I have to put this stupid sword back so that I can carry them. Anyway, then you've got gameplay mods that do complete overhauls, like Requiem and Skyrim Redone. You've got archery mods that specifically change the way archery works, and realism mods that make it so that when you take a wound, you limp until you sit down and rest. I don't know who wants that, but I'm the one that installed Frostfall, the hypothermia mod.
I have the food mods where I have that too. Every couple hours and
I have to tell this story. Yesterday, okay. Everybody who has played Skyrim probably knows that the first thing you do is you go to Riverwood, and you talk to the guys in the Riverwood Trader because you want to sell the stuff that you got in your little intro thing. And they are all upset. The guy's like, oh no, they stole my golden claw. And he sends you off to Bleak Falls Barrow on a quest to get his stolen claw back, right? Well, I always thought that was weird. Why are you this prisoner? You're just like, no problem, I'll go dig into a crypt for you. So what actually happened is I'm playing around with my new needs mod, which means you have to keep up enough water and food, otherwise you start getting penalties, like your stamina gets lower, regen, health, whatever. So I need empty bottles in order to fill them up in the river with water to take with me to Bleak Fall Barrow, because I know that's where I'm going. And I was like, well, I got all this mead in my inventory just having looted it. So let me just drink it. Suddenly my screen is plastered with all kinds of, stuff is doubled. They've done a fantastic job creating, a drunk vision mode. And I just hit my thing and it's like, you are wasted. Like it said, you're a little peckish, not thirsty, wasted. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't really want to go and sleep because I don't want to waste any more time. So I'm just going to walk into the, the little market there, go inside, and these guys clearly see that I'm wasted, and they're like, maybe we can convince this stooge into getting our claw for us. That's not what they actually said, but that's what I'm thinking in my head, what's actually happening in this scene. My character sees this, but really these guys are like, hey buddy, you look like a really strong guy. I bet you could do us a favor. And my character's like, yeah, I'm totally strong. I could do that, I could get you back your claw. And I could do it just like that. And so now I'm they lead me out, and I'm still in drunk vision. I'm trying to make my way up the mountain to Bleak Falls Barrow, and I find a wolf, and it's like, oh god, what is this thing? And I literally fall over, climbing the mountain 5 times. The game puts you in third-person mode and watches your character stumble to the ground and get back up. And that happened in combat 4 times. And finally my character's like, okay, I'm just going to sleep this off. When I got inside Bleak Falls Barrow, there's a little bed there. I just slept it off. But it was pretty hilarious how it turned out. All because I just needed some empty bottles, and I found out later there was a hotkey in the mod where I could just use it, and it would empty the bottle for me right into the river instead of making me drunk. It's great. All right.
And that's the Frostfall mod doing that?
Sorry, that's one called Realistic. Wait a minute, let me pull up my
Realistic Needs and Diseases. Is that it?
I think so. Yes, Realistic Needs and Diseases is my favorite because it's adjustable. You can make it as harsh or as light as you want. I just like the drama of you can do anything you want with basically zero consequences in the default Skyrim. And if you feel like you're tied to going back to town, like, oh, I need to do that, or I need to go hunt and make some food quick, or it's getting cold, I actually need to make shelter. Like, there's a new dramatic turn of events where I can't just be like, Blizzard, who cares? I'll just walk. You know, doesn't matter. Yeah. So realistic needs and diseases plus Frostfall are the two sort of realism ones that I use. And they're very configurable. You can configure them all in the Sky UI. You can make them harsh or not harsh. So I really like those. Okay.
They all add to like that. I don't know how anyone else, I don't know how you guys play, but I kind of have a ongoing narrative with my character.
And running in your head?
Yeah, sort of like, why are things happening? Like, oh, okay. And the mods like that, especially those realism mods and the hypothermia mod, they add this like really, they create these really interesting circumstances that wouldn't happen in the vanilla game without it. So, like you just mentioned your drunk story, I remember once I was freezing to death and I needed to get out of like this blizzard, so I just went full werewolf form and just started bolting down out of the snow. And, like, this werewolf is like running through the blizzard, trying not to freeze to death because I didn't have enough firewood to make a fire. Like, it just creates these really interesting moments that you can add to your like personal character story.
And there's another cool mini game you can play, by the way. I'll see if I can find the footage here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so when you get to Whiterun, which you're going to go to a lot, right? Everybody knows. Whiterun you're going to all the time because it's right in the middle of the map. You got tons of different shops you can sell your stuff to there. So when you get to Whiterun and you're making your way up to Dragon's Reach, there's a mini game you can play. And it's every time you go past this motherfucker over here yelling at the top of his lungs about Talos all the time. You just come over here, you quick save the game, and you find a new way to kill him. The first way I tried, I shoot him in the face with an arrow. That wasn't enough, I gotta shoot him in the back. Then the next time I tried, I tried to beat him to death with my fists before the guards could kill me. And then I tried, like, I was shouting him to death with Fusro, I'm trying to knock him into things until he died, but the guards got me there. So I think next time I might try like one of the ones that just kills people outright, or the ones that set them on fire or what have you. But then you just quick load back to where you were and just keep on your way, like nothing happened.
And it makes you feel better, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the guys that did the trick shots? Like, they'll be standing right next to that guy. They'll shoot a bow right up, straight up into the air, then go sit on the bench and wait, and like 10 seconds later, the arrow comes streaming down and lands right on his head and kills him. That was pretty good.
All right, so the most important thing, Bridger, out of all of this, modding Skyrim, modding Oblivion, which we all learned, etc., is to play the game, right?
Yes!
Yeah.
to play the game.
I finally got to actually play it last night. It was fantastic. Rather than just booting it up, testing it, and then shutting it down, and then booting. If you see Great or I on your Steam just like popping up and then disappearing, and then it's like, is playing Skyrim in 30 seconds, is playing Skyrim, is playing Skyrim. It's like, yep, testing mods. Something's not working.
It's a vicious like spiral downwards at a certain point. You're just like, I'm not even playing this game anymore. I am just trying to like squeeze an extra 3 frames out every second, or I am trying this out, this brand new gameplay mod, which I've never tried before, so I'm just trying it out, and it breaks this thing, so I have to fix all this other stuff. It is, play the game. Just play the game sometimes. It should be more fun to play the game of mods, but like, don't make the modding your game.
Yeah.
Make the game your game.
Definitely. Definitely. All right. Any final thoughts? Anything we missed here, guys?
I mean, honestly, we can go on forever about mods.
That's
The big
true.
thing, guys, is I believe we're going to post some notes on our own mods. We have some threads at Team Legacy where you can view mods that we're using. And obviously, kind of explore. You know, that's kind of the thing with modding. You know, you may find something that's more to your liking than we would like. But yeah, play the game as well. Don't forget, because I've seen many a friend spend hours and hours modding the game, and then a new game comes out and they completely forget about Skyrim and uninstall it. I can't count how many times I've seen my buddies do that. Like, they'll spend 2 or 3 days modding a game and then uninstall it to make room for another game or something, or just uninstall it not thinking, and then they're like, oh, you know, remember when I modded Skyrim? I meant to play that, you know, and they spent all that time modding it, never to play it.
Oh, here's a better example of how good the game looks with an ENB. If I can get the right spot, once we get outside, you can see exactly how good it looks. And I also chased down the guy to beat him with my fist. But that's definitely a really good point. And I've actually, believe it or not, I never made it past level 22 in Skyrim. I never beat the game. Like, I played it when it came out, when it was, like, basically vanilla, and I got to level 22, and then I played something else. I don't remember what it was, but I went to play something else, probably League at the time, and then I just started modding, and I never made it again past level 22. I really want to this time. I finally, like, I've gotten to the point where I think I may have viewed every single mod out there and decided whether I liked it or not. Like, I've literally filtered every major important mod, even the ones that change the moon size, like, because it's too big.
That's an important one, though.
But I have to change it to, like, 60% of the normal size. First, I tried it at, like, 80%, still too big. Then I went down to 60%. Actually, that was a step recommendation. I didn't really test all of those. But I feel like I finally am at a situation where I have a stable mode that has the graphics at a high quality and also a random zooming forward. That didn't actually happen when I was playing. That also has, you know, a high playability because it's at 40, 45 FPS all the time, never lower than that. So I can actually play it with this set of mods. I'm no longer troubleshooting trying to get the game to actually be playable. So I'm ready to actually go play some now because I got through Bleak Falls Barrow for perhaps the 10th time. And so now I want to play the rest of the game.
I like the place plant you do right there.
Yeah, I think the guard shoots me with an arrow.
And another thing that somebody in chat brought up is we brought up ENB and such, which changes the lighting and effects of sprites and particle effects. But there's also some really, really advanced texture packs that you can download, which aren't exactly mods. Now they have mod versions, but there's some texture packs just simply replaced Skyrim textures. And they have one that I looked at that's like a 4K texture pack that will just assassinate your PC.
Yes.
I mean, you can get like, all right, the lighting, like watching your video now on the Stream Bridger, the lighting is amazing, right? But, you know, what would make it again appear like a whole new game is texture packs, which I notice you're using vanilla textures for the most part.
I'm using a lot of different textures. I'm using the static mesh improvement mod, but the main one that I have is the
well, static mesh isn't a texture though. That's
sorry, yes, but I mean as far as graphics. But I'm also using Skyrim HD, but I'm using the 2K version, not using the 4K version because that would not work for me. I'm just using the 2K version.
Okay, well that's what I'm getting at though. Like we were to compare your footage here to somebody not using the HD footage, it does look very, very different, and you don't really notice it until you compare them side by side.
Exactly.
So definitely look into that as well. I mean, especially because Skyrim is it's almost a year, maybe more than a year now, right?
No, it was like 2011. It was 11/11/11, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been like a year and 6 months almost.
Yeah, so, I mean, things have progressed since then. PCs have progressed, so...
If only they'd give us a DirectX 11 mode. This is still all done with DirectX 9, getting it to look this good, which is pretty amazing.
And, well, talking about the future, you got Elder Scrolls Online, which is designed to be sort of a Skyrim/Morrowind online. We'll be approaching that, I'm sure, at a later episode. But... that is DirectX 11, and that is supposed to be Skyrim redone and Morrowind redone versus online. So we got that, and then I'm sure there's going to be another official Elder Scrolls coming out. So hopefully they carry on what they have been doing, right, and allow modding for that as well.
I can't wait for that. I mean, Oblivion to Skyrim was such a big step up in terms of immersion in the world. That I can't imagine what the next iteration of an Elder Scrolls single-player game would look like. If it makes as big a leap, it would be phenomenal. It'd be like virtual reality. Like that's the step up. Your next version, Skyrim, you've got the Elder Scrolls number 6 comes with the equivalent of Oculus.
Well,
my God!
Take a look at some of the more recent stuff to come out that's akin to Skyrim, like Far Cry 3. If you've played Far Cry 3, it's amazing the way it looks, and it even blows Skyrim, out the water as far as looks of the game. You look at games like Dead Space and all these new titles. Obviously, Battlefield 4, which you'll see, Bridger. You'll see, it's going to be amazing. you know, and then just imagine Bethesda taking some of that technology and making another Elder Scrolls, you know. So, good stuff.
That's actually a great question to end the show on. If you could have only 5 mods in your Skyrim, what would they be? Immediately off the top of my head, I think Skyrim, Deadly Combat. What the hell else is in this list that really matters to me?
Oh man, I didn't think about this one.
Probably my 2 mods that changed, like the realistic needs and the Frostfall, and then the last one, maybe Sky UI. It'd have to be Sky UI. Yeah.
Yeah.
If Sky UI is a given, I might throw a Midian-born Book of Silence, which is a project to retexture all of the weapons and armor in the game with really high-quality, amazing-looking versions. And I definitely recommend that, too. I didn't mention it because it's just a texture replacer, but it looks freaking good. Like, let's take a quick look at this if I can move my screen over. Like, so here's some of the stuff they're doing with weapons.
I am still hoping for a mod that comes out that works well, that allows me to use my 1 through 9 hotkeys. Like, I still want Skyrim to be able to... Because something that still gets me, even with all of this modding, is the fact that I still have to open my menu and interrupt combat and pause the game to, you know, to basically select a spell. And then if you use a multitude of spells, it gets very... I don't know. It breaks. It's the immersion, Bridger.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But I mean,
immersion.
I don't know why it hasn't been done. I'm wondering if maybe it's the game limitation.
I think it's a game limitation. There are ones that do that, but they really heavily scripted in order to make that happen, and they can bog down your experience.
There's a delay when you do that stuff.
Yeah.
So like if you want to have like an equip set, like I want this thing in my right hand and this thing in my left, it'll be like and then you'll get it in like a second or 2.
Right, that's how they do it. They like equip everything. They like de-equip your character and then re-equip them manually. I know categorized favorites menu has a version of that that's sort of in beta. It doesn't work great to the point where I just said, screw it, I'm not even going to try because this is not working very well. So, I mean, I'm just showing off some of the Midian-born, I don't even know, Amidian born Book of Silence. You can also get these individually. The Book of Silence is his entire library of these upgraded textures. But you can get them individually as well. Like, I think if you scroll down, here's all the different things that he's redone. And it looks fantastic, phenomenal. So I'd throw that on my list.
Great job over there. I use that one, and it's worth it. Like, you just get... And it's weird because you get used to, like, these textures, and then you go back to the vanilla game or something, and you're like, how did I ever play like this before?
Yeah. How do the peasants play with this? All right. That's I think, plenty to go on, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's time to sign off. Thanks, you guys, for watching. That was awesome for our inaugural show. We went like 2 hours, easy. We could do this every week, but we're going to do it every other week because we got a lot to say about BioShock Infinite. That's coming in 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to be doing a Burning Wheel game, tabletop experience using Skype, streaming it live at 7 p.m. Eastern next Sunday, the 14th. It's going to be a ton of fun. I know you guys think it's going to be stupid and boring, but we're going to make it really fun. The game system I've chosen keeps the action moving. There's not a lot of, like, watching miniatures move around on the thing. It's all, like, interaction between the players. So you're going to see how awesome it is. I guarantee it. Thanks, guys. Freelancer, great. Good to have you on.
Always.
Thanks for having me, yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys next week at the Burning Wheel in 2 weeks for GG, the General Gaming Show. That's like my white guy Elaine Bennis dance. It's just the chicken. That's what I do.
Wait, what chicken? Oh, that?
The chicken. Just do this. That's my dancing to the painkiller music.
I can dig it. Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. All right, so that was good. I probably kept that going longer than I should have. Sorry, guys.
Well, there's a lot to talk about.
There is. You want to cover everything, but you can't.
I mean, we look at our list. I know we're all like 100+ mods, so I like when that 5. Like, what 5 would you pick? I'm looking through my list. I'm like, I don't know. Like,
that's why it was a good question. I thought the same thing. Like, oh God, I should have put that as a question. We should have talked about that. Like, that should have been something we talked about a while ago, because that would have been a great thing to start with.
Yeah.
All right. But we kind of did that when we were talking about our favorites. That's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like recommendations. Like, what would we say you should use?
Exactly.
Like,
all right.
Look at the using.
Ugh. Now I'm either going to play some more Bioshock Infinite or League.
You got to finish Bioshock.
I'm going to finish that in 2 weeks. No problem. That's going to happen.
If you're going to play League, let's play League.
All right. Because I know Angie's going to want to play League. Angie's going to want to play League.
Bridger, are you playing on normal or hard?
In Skyrim?
No.
Bioshock? I'm just playing on normal because...
He's definitely playing normal.
Okay.
What?
I want you, when you beat it, go in and play...
I'm
you don't have to
having
do
no
1999 mode, but go and play hard. Because I'm trying to get a general... Either I'm a terrible player, or this game is just really... We're going to have to talk about difficulty when we talk about this game.
Right. I mean, normal so far has been really easy for me.
You never showed that footage that
Which
I linked
footage
for
did
Bioshock.
you link?
For Bioshock.
The one that you linked earlier, I looked at it and it was a Battlefield 4 video. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, you did. It's the Twitch one. It says, I was just picking out some videos. It says, play this. Here, let me link it again for you. But that was just some Bioshock footage. But anyways, yeah, because me and Great were talking about Bioshock, and we'll go way into this, I'm sure, next episode. But he had trouble with the melee combat and stuff. Like, for him, it was a lot of ducking and running and such, where I just couldn't do that. Like, I was always in the enemy's face, boom, headshot, 2 feet away with a sniper rifle, and running back and forth. So
I'm just going machine gun / RPG pretty much all the time. I just gun everybody down the instant they show up. I haven't had any issues playing on normal, but I haven't felt the need to make it harder because, like I said, the combat I just want to get past in order to get to the next cool part of the story. Because Feyrana's sort of watching me play, and we've been sort of trading off, and she's been playing too. And she wants to know what the hell's going to happen next. Yeah. So I don't want to have to... and I actually saw an article to this extent where somebody said, I could play it on hard, but I'd rather not because it would mean that, okay, there are some more challenging parts, but I'd have to stop and reload more often than I want to.
Well, I'll tell you what, one spot great that I had trouble with, no spoilers, don't worry, was where you're defending an airship. You know what spot I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I must have died like 9 times there. Because I had no cover,
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very open area, yeah.
So yeah, that was the only spot I had trouble with. I maybe died a total of 3 times before that throughout the whole game.
All right, so
I was always in enemies' faces.
I don't think death was that big of a problem. I think it was just the way the difficulty made a lot of the enemies just into bullet sponges and like.
No, man, you get the aiming traits that give you bonus to crit damage. You got the 25% extra aim damage. Then you have the 50% extra crit damage. Then there's one where if you have a full set of ammo, it does extra damage. You add all those together, it was like boom, 900 damage headshots with either the carbine or the sniper rifle all day, every day, man.
All right. So
yeah, we'll go into that.
Definitely.
There'll be a lot more
There's
to talk
so
about
much
that.
cool stuff to talk about with that. But I am going to shut down the stream and then restart it so that I've got a good stopping point, and then we can stream some League because I know Angie probably wants to play. I'm going to see what's up with her. So I'll be right back, guys. Stay tuned.